Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm going to give people a couple minutes to log in here. If you're new, we'd love to hear where you're coming from and what company you're working with. So feel free to enter that information into the question box on your navigation bar, and then we'll start the webinar very shortly. Ooh, it looks like we have some people from all over the country, a couple people from the Bay Area. So shout out to the Bay Area. Awesome. I'm going to let a couple more people join and then we'll get started. Perfect. All right. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So hello again and welcome. Thank you guys for joining our webinar on facility EHS compliance and safety in real time. Today, I'm very excited to be joined with the MMC team to talk about the ways they were able to boost accountability by going digital. But before we dive in, I want to take a second and introduce myself. My name is Celine Jones. I'm a customer success manager here at Mapistry. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. But what it just means is that I have the pleasure of working with our customers to make sure that they're onboarded and successful here at Mapistry, and then to relay all the information that we're able to collect on our software and present them in quarterly business reviews, talk about ways we can improve their usage and improve Mapistry as a whole. So I've been with the company for about 2 years and I've had the pleasure of onboarding the MMC team. And I'm so excited to talk about their success story with you guys today. Before all that, a quick agenda. We're going to do an introduction to Mapistry. So for anybody that's new to the software, we'll talk a little bit about it. We'll talk about some trends and challenges facing the industry today, and then we'll jump into that Q&A with the MMC team. At the end, we'll answer audience questions, so feel free to pop them in the question box on your navigation bar. You should see it on the left-hand side. Awesome. With that, let's talk a little bit about Mapistry. I was just joking with Sonia and Gary earlier that I can talk about Mapistry all day, every day. For those of you who don't know, Mapistry is a software that helps leaders drive intelligent environmental and safety decisions. We help companies standardize processes, give them access to a wealth of data, and then they're able to use that data to help mitigate risks and understand what's happening at the ground level. We've really built a very easy to use and customizable platform that is easy for on the web or on mobile. So very exciting time at Mapistry. Our goal here at Mapistry is to operationalize EHS management by driving accountability, standardizing processes, taking a paper-based process and making it automated. So a lot of you know a lot of inspections are completed on paper now. You might have multiple inspections completed on paper. We're really trying to change that and make it more digital. With that, we also provide analytics, help by integrating with your systems and data so that you have a holistic compliance software. And this year, we've been able to do just that. We've had more than 50,000 inspections completed on Mapistry and over 200 or 2,000 facilities managing compliance on Mapistry, which is really exciting for us. We're trusted by some of the leading industrial companies, and you'll get to hear from one of them today. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about the trends and challenges that's facing the industry today. If anybody has joined our Coffee and Compliance recently, we've been talking a lot about enforcement readiness and how the Biden administration has increased their pressure to make sure that companies are enforcement ready and how enforcement has been on a rise. So we've seen enforcement increase by the EPA and DOJ, and then we've seen 2 times the number of OSHA investigators working with the group and doing the investigations. This increase on scrutiny has made it even more important for facilities to be audit ready. That means prioritizing software and creating visibility and accessibility and accountability. With that, we've also seen remote enforcement. So like the rest of the world, enforcement is going digital. We've seen a lot of enforcers that do drive-by enforcements, ask for documents virtually. So that means companies need to be even more ready to have those documents on hand and easily accessible for users. One of my colleagues, Courtney Wilson, has this perfect saying or analogy. She says that you would never have your accounting team use paper systems to do the accounting work. So why are we having EHS professionals use paper to do their jobs? Okay, and all of this is made even more difficult by a traditionally manual EHS workflow that is chaotic, time-consuming, and involves a lot of different organizations. I think this visualization is really great because it really shows how many people are involved and how chaotic it can sometimes get. And if you're using paper, that means it's just a little more difficult. And if you have 15,000 inspection items, that's going to be even harder to track on Excel. And it's going to mean that you're spending a lot more time checking yourself and making sure you have all the correct information. Oop. And all this is to say that challenges create a huge barriers for manufacturing companies. They ultimately create less accountability and more risk. There's no oversight with paper. There's no way to recognize and reinforce good performance, and no way to prevent pencil whipping. So how do we address this? The stakes are high, more complex regulations, more scrutiny from regulators, and really manufacturers need to put in place better tools to overcome the operational challenges that can lead to risk. So having those tools in place will lessen their risk and make it easier to track and monitor what's going on at your facilities. And today I'm really, really excited to talk to the MMC team. They are a leading ready-mix concrete company, and we're able to address challenges and drive excellence in their safety and environmental programs through the adoption of technology. I personally think they are an outstanding example of what it means to successfully adopt technology. Cool. And with that, I'll introduce our speakers, and we're going to start the Q&A process. Oops, too many. So we have Gary Scott. He is the assistant area manager for the GTR area at MMC. He has been with the company for 10 years and has worked in the concrete industry since 2012. He has an experience working as a director of quality control and was promoted to assistant area manager in 2021. So congratulations. He's now responsible for 12 locations, 70 employees, and a fleet of mixer trucks and tankers. And then we're also joined by Sonia Price. Sonia is the area manager for the GTR and Delta area at MMC. She's been with the company. Safety.
Yeah,
exactly.
Area safety manager.
Thank you. She's been with the company for 8 years and has been working in safety since 2007. Currently, Sonia is in charge of safety and environmental compliance for 19 concrete plants in Mississippi. And then Sonia was also a huge part of how Mapistry was brought to MMC and helpful with the rollout as well. So we've been able to work together very closely. So thank you both for joining.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Gary to talk a little bit about MMC Materials and their history.
Okay, like she said, we're a ready-mix concrete industry company throughout Mississippi into Tennessee, Florida, Panhandle, Louisiana. About 80 concrete plants. We actually have a couple of sand and gravel pits now that we're in control of. As far as the inspections go, you know, we have to follow OSHA, federal, state. We have our own inspection process that we go through. So very safety oriented. very big on environmental issues, things like that.
That's awesome. I'm going to move on to our first question. So thinking about the challenges you faced before, can you talk a little bit about those challenges and why you were looking for a tool like Mapistry?
Yeah, so some of the challenges that we had, everything was done on paper, obviously, and with all of the locations spread out to verify that the inspections were done, that they were completed on time. We would have to go around to each plant. We would have to go in and go through all of the books and all of the forms and all of the paper and check every single one to make sure everything was done. And that had to be done one plant at a time as we could get there. So that was really a challenge there. And there really was no way to ensure that everything was done appropriately. I mean, it was just checking boxes, yes or no, and there wasn't really any, unless somebody took the actual extra step of printing out a photo to put with it, there was no way to verify what they looked at when they looked at it and all of that. So there was a lot of that. And then each plant some may have older forms, they didn't get the updated forms, or some may have missed an email where we added a form or something like that. So it was really difficult for them to keep up with what was needed to be done, when it needed to be done. Some things are quarterly, monthly, weekly, you know, so they had to remember which ones were done when. So there was a lot of that, you know, and just kind of verifying that everything was done all at the same time. And appropriately. So it was kind of a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work, especially with 19 facilities that you have to go to each one, and they're obviously not all next door. So sounds like a lot of
My
19 facilities span east to west.
Across the state.
Yeah, 2 highway corridors. So it's from the east side of the state to the west side of the state. It's a lot of travel.
Wow. Yeah, sounds like it. And a lot of binders to look through and
lots of binders, yes. And they're huge and they're heavy.
yeah. Awesome. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And then why do you guys choose to move to digital?
So I started several years ago with a free app. I was in a training seminar and somebody mentioned an inspection app that you could get for free in the App Store. And so I looked at it, I downloaded it, and I was like, oh, this would be cool, so I can make my own. So I spent probably a whole entire week customizing my own form and all that. And so the corporate safety manager came around and saw me using the app, and he's, you know, what are you doing? And I showed him and I said, you know, if we could get all of our environmental forms electronically, that would help, you know, because we could do all this. Well, you know, of course there was challenges with that too, but he was all for it, you know. So we kind of started looking and talking to MDEQ, which is our environmental enforcement in the state. And at the time, they actually were not accepting anything other than paper inspections.
Wow.
So we had to convince them that electronic information was the way to go. And I think COVID helped that a little bit with the necessity of distancing and all. But we were able to get them to start accepting in 2021 digital data, because we were emailing them the paper anyway. So finally we got them to accept digital data, and so we kind of moved into that, and it's just been much easier since then.
Yeah, that's huge. I think both the initiative you took to find an app that worked for you and realize that there's other solutions out there, and then also pushing
Right.
to like make
That
everything
one was not going to be financially acceptable, but also we would have to do all of the work ourselves, as far as each area would have to put their stuff in, and we all know that that's not likely to happen on a broad scale, you know, so, and you would still have the inconsistencies and all that. So we looked for something that would bring everything together and make it more user-friendly, because that was not user-friendly at all. And that would match the compliance requirements for our reporting.
That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I think just from working with you guys and building out your software on Mapistry, that would have been a lot of work on top of your everyday job that you're already doing and everybody else's everyday job for you to try to go in there and build it all yourself. So
Yes, that was harrowing experience.
yeah.
And then making changes, you know, with you guys, we can get with you and globally make a change.
Yeah.
Where with something else is going to each location and changing what you need. It just makes things a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Awesome. So, oh, did I skip? Nope. Why Mapistry for implementation? We've kind of touched on it right now. You were building with the free app, you're building everything and would still have to do that. So what else brought you to Mapistry?
Just the ease of use, you know, had a lot to do with it. And, you know, the global changes that need to be made, the consistency between inspection forms and frequencies, and the ability to push it out to everybody in our organization rather than piecemeal it, you know, that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Just having a team dedicated to helping us do that too was very, very helpful. And then we had, of course, the trial that we ran for a month.
Yeah.
You know, and we were able to use the trial. I put a couple of plant managers on that with me to see how they liked it and how they felt about it, and it seemed to fit every need that we had.
Yeah, and the broad use, you know, we're using it for several different things now, and I think we'll touch on that later, from inventories to different things.
Yeah, safety and environmental.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt like as we were going through your onboarding, we were able to identify other things that we could help with too, which was really exciting because there was so much that each facility was doing and that maybe all facilities needed to be doing. So it was really fun exploration into like what you guys needed and then finding out even more that was out there and more that was possible with Mapistry.
Right, right.
So that's really awesome. All right, jumping into our next question. What are the biggest benefits of going digital with your EHS program?
I mean, you know, like we kind of touched on earlier, is there was a lot of pencil whipping going on, and I've been around to these plants and I know how they work. You know, they would hear Sonia's coming around to do her quarterly inspection. Well, he picks up the phone and calls the next one. Hey, make sure all your stuff's in order. You know, and so they get the book out and they start checking boxes. You know, they wait till the last minute to do it. Who knows how accurate that information is? You know, this we can track on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to make sure it's being done on time when it's supposed to be done. That's probably the biggest benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Just to track it a lot closer and better, and it's a lot easier to see who's doing what and when.
Yeah, and being able to pick up at any point in time in the month and see how the inspections are going, you know, who's doing well. It really helps your stars stand out. The ones who put forth the extra effort to do the inspections properly, having that visibility there with the analytics dashboard to be able to see a percentage wise, you know, and you can see on the map, you know, pretty quickly at a glance where everything is looking. So that helps a lot.
And the reminders, you know, it sends the reminders out when things are due. You know, these guys, they are busy a lot of times, and you have something that's due on a weekly basis, something that's due monthly, something that's due daily. You know, it's easy to forget things, and this, it really helps to keep them on track,
For sure.
on schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you guys nailed it on the head, and you are taking advantage of all the different ways to track and to notify people, which I think is wonderful. Both those notifications where you can get your like Monday morning email. If you're on site that morning, you see which site needs to complete which inspections, and then you can go attack those inspections. And then with the higher level analytics view, you're able to share that with upper management and show them, hey, we've been improving month over month. I know yesterday Sonia and I had a call and we talked about how you get to share that data with senior level management or corporate management and show what is being improved and the areas that are actually doing really well.
Yeah, you can see it from when we began to implement until now, the improvement of the quality of the inspections, the timeliness of the inspections. You can see it, and it's so nice to be able to track that and actually see the progress.
Yeah.
And it definitely shows when you start this, it's going to show you your bad apples, or it's going to show you some things that you didn't know were happening, but you have to be able to see that to improve.
Right.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
with the paperwork before, you thought everything was just going along great, but this kind of shows you what needs to be improved on so that you can start that process.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing that you're red or you have red inspection forms at the beginning. It just means that there's some growing to do and working together to fix that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Kind of moving on to the single source of truth. I know this is really important for you guys. Again, we've talked about how many sites you have and how far apart they are. So can you talk a little bit about this too?
Yeah, so whenever somebody comes around for an inspection, be it OSHA, DEQ, or the federal EPA, if they come around, they're asking questions, it doesn't look very good if your manager on site isn't really sure what they're asking about, what jar test sort of thing,
And then trying to flip through a book to find, well, it's in here somewhere.
It's in here somewhere. I know it's in here somewhere, so having everything all together in one place where they can just go, oh, I know exactly where that's at. Let me click, click, click. Here it is. It looks much better that they know and they're informed on what's going on their site. And having to read the questions and answer the questions every month, they're more cognizant of what's going on. So that has a lot to do with it, having everything in one place. In the document section at the bottom where we scan in the SWIP plan, the 300 logs, things like the things that need to be kept and have easy access to it. They know where to go to find it now. They don't have to look on a shelf or a bulletin board. Yeah. So having everything together helps tremendously.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We had a different user. We set them up with Mapistry and they completed their first inspection. And the next day, an inspector came on site and they were like, show me everything. And so they were able to pull up Mapistry and show them the inspection they had just done. And like, it was the perfect timing, but it saved so much time because they were ready for it without even knowing they were ready for it. So they're ready for those sneak attacks or surprise attacks by a regulator.
You want to find it as fast as possible because you don't want those guys hanging around any longer than they have to.
Exactly. So being ready is huge. And then having trust that all of your employees or whoever is going to be talking to that regulator knows where it is or can search it on Mapistry search bar. I think honestly, that little search feature that you see in the slide is huge and makes things work a little bit quicker.
Oh, yes. And it helps the confidence of the inspector as well to know that, okay, I'm in a place where they're at least cognizant of the laws and the rules and the inspections that need to be done. They're at least aware of things rather than, not being sure of themselves. So that helps tremendously. Helps inspections go a lot quicker.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Awesome. Well, you guys also talked about this a little bit, but like higher quality inspections being done. Specifically, you have a lot of safety inspections on Mapistry. I know we built a lot and customized a lot for you guys to make sure that they were going to be easy to use, but also fit all your requirements. So do you mind talking about this for a little bit?
Go ahead. I mean,
yeah, so we have a lot of internal safety documents. We have safety inspections that we do. There are internal forms. And because we are really highly safety oriented, these forms were being required along with the environmental forms every month or every quarter and they may or may not have been done, again, appropriately. Or in my case, I would go around, I do facility inspections, and I would find improvements that needed to be made, or signs that needed to be replaced or repaired, or, but I would go over my inspection with the facility manager, and then he may or may not remember everything I said. So the task function, I can now assign a task with the photos. They have access to everything. They can put their notes in there, say something needs to be ordered and it's on backlog, and I've given them a date to complete, but because the part is not going to be in, they can make a note of that. They can upload a form where they have a work order, or they've placed an order and they have a confirmation of shipping, but it just isn't here yet. So we can take that whole process. We can scan in documents, we can add photos, and then track the completion of that. When it's done, you just mark that it's complete, and you can see the whole entire process. So they don't forget things that need to be done. I don't have to repeat every single quarter for 2 years, everything, this needs to be corrected, this needs to be corrected. It's there, it reminds them, it's on their weekly email. They get an email when a task is assigned to them, so they know immediately, okay, Sonia's asked for these things to be done, I need to get them done. And they can document that whole process. So the quality of the safety inspections has resulted in really less downtime, because things are getting repaired before they become a problem. The plants are cleaner because they're actually getting the things done that I'm requesting that they get done. Things are running a lot smoother, I think, because of these inspections and the quality of them.
Yeah, I mean, things are just getting done. We have an operations manager who oversees all 12 plants. Well, they're always calling him, hey, I need this fixed. Hey, I need this fixed. Hey, I need this fixed. Well, if he's in the middle of, if he's up on a silo working on something and he gets the call, hey, I need this, he forgets that before he gets back to the ground. Mm-hmm. This way we have a way to track that and keep up with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's important too to recognize that this means that you guys can know things are being done without being on that site or coming back in a month and doing the same inspection over and saying still not done.
Yeah, and getting upset because it's not been done. Like, I asked you to get this done, why is it not done? Well, they forgot, now they don't forget.
Exactly. That's huge. Yeah, and I think it also, it makes it so easy to see how much you're improving, because those photos, you can take a before photo of when you found the issue and add that task, and then they can take an after photo of what they fixed and how they fixed it and have all that information in there too. And then you have that record for you, and ultimately what it's doing is mitigating risk in the long term, because less safety issues, less environmental issues being raised.
Yeah, absolutely. And the downtime that it saves preventing things from happening is huge.
Yeah.
So you're productive more hours of the day, I guess, or yeah, you have more uptime, more runtime.
Yeah, I agree totally. Awesome. And leads perfectly into the next segment, which is talking about flexibility and the way Mapistry helps with that.
Yeah, that's what we kind of touched on earlier. It's a broad use program. We've used it for safety, we use it for environmental, we've started using it for inventory, using it for training purposes. Just several things that we found to be very useful.
Yeah, we have to actually document our personnel training for our state agency for environmental training. So we can actually use the inspection form or the widget for personnel training to upload a copy of the sign-in. We can upload the documents that we used for the training, and make notes as to what was trained on, and then it's all right there again with all of your environmental inspections. So when they come in and ask for all of your environmental records, you download everything, it's in there, and you don't have to worry about it. So we do have that. the safety aspect of it, again, you know, I guess a lot of people, something I learned at the Mapistry Summit was that a lot of people didn't realize that you could use it for safety inspections. They just thought it was only environmental. And so I guess our talk about how we use it for our safety inspections as well kind of helped a lot. And seeing that you can have it all in one place in one program and not have to use different programs for safety and environmental and all of these things. Having things in one place, it's so nice.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I think too, a lot of people don't know that how customizable Mapistry is. And we spent a lot of time really working with you guys to make sure that we were customizing to your needs and making sure that the forms that were in there were based off of your regulations or what you required, and that we were adding it to all the sites or the sites that needed it, or whatever the case was. So that is something that I think
Right.
that is huge.
And having different sites in different states, there are different requirements.
Exactly.
You know, so we have different requirements for Florida, different requirements for Alabama, different requirements for Louisiana, and and Tennessee. Some of the forms are similar. Some of them we could use the same. Some of them are vastly different, and some of them exist in one state that don't exist in the other. So again, the flexibility, the team being able to help go through all of our forms with us and see which ones we could, you know, double up and which ones we had to make specifically for different locations. That was, again, a huge thing in making the decision to go with Mapistry, because that flexibility was there where we might not have had it with other programs.
Exactly. I agree. And I think it's been so fun to kind of like figure out, okay, we just need to tweak this a little bit for Alabama because they have this one regulation that Mississippi doesn't have. And I find a lot of joy in that, and I think that excitement is always fun to bring to a conversation with you guys to try to problem solve a new
Oh
form.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Awesome. Okay, moving on to inventory tracking. We touched on this a little more. Any other comments about your inventory tracker? This is an example.
You do that.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes it easy for me. I kind of oversee all the inventory and track the inventory, end of month inventory, make sure everything matches up. Previously, they had a sheet of paper that they filled their inventory out on and faxed in or scanned and emailed in. And, you know, we would get some on the 1st, some on the 3rd, would have to call some on the 4th and say, I need it yesterday. You know, with this, I can just pop right on, pull off the information I need, and it's right there.
Whenever you need.
Yeah.
It saves more time than anything.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Also check it for, you know, once a year you can require them to put their, you know, measure their piles and put their measurements on there, so you can double check that calculation.
Yeah.
Or it's easy to go in and make sure, you know, verify the validity of that inventory and does it make sense, and, you know, are we missing something because, you know, they're saying that they have, you know, X number of tons on the ground, but we're not showing all of these invoices. Are we sure we're not missing something? It's easy to help verify that we have everything in and everything accounted for on the accounting side of it, with the inventory tracking on there as well. So again, having it in the same place where everybody knows where to go and everybody has, you know, they know how it works. It's all in the same place. It just goes back to having it all together.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the cool thing too about the way we set it up is we set it up with a template. So we set it up with all of your aggregates listed and your everything else in here as well. I think, yeah, diesel admix, so that you guys can adjust that too as you need. If 1 month you have all of these items and then the next month you don't, you can have that flexibility to remove, or you have to keep it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, it's set up exactly like my form is set up. So when I'm transposing those numbers, I don't even have to read. I just plug in numbers because it's set up in the exact same order. You know, you can set it up how you need it set up, and that's very handy.
Yeah, and even different areas may have theirs in a different order, so they can change that form, the order of the form, or they may have different chemicals than we have. They can change the names of those, add some, delete some, they may have different aggregates than us. They can add or delete, and they can customize it to their actual locations too. So it's customizable not only company to company, but also area to area or plant to plant.
Yeah, and that's huge. I think it's so nice to be able for you guys to go in and see it, the same form setup, but you know that, okay, this plant's going to have different concrete aggregates, but this plant is going to have all of these, but it's all going to look like this, have
Yes.
these sorts of questions. And I think that makes it easy to use, but also very customizable, which is our motto.
Yeah, yeah, it's huge. It's very helpful. Very useful.
That's what we like to hear. Awesome. You guys had an example you want to share with us? If we haven't already talked about it, we've kind of touched on a lot so far.
Oh gosh, okay. So let me see. As far as specific examples, I guess there was one plant that needed some rollers replaced. And so when I did my inspection, I was able to go in there, document the rollers that needed to be replaced, take pictures of it, put it in the task, assign the task. And then the plant manager is able then to go in there and say, put his notes in there about, okay, I called our operations manager and scheduled him to come. He's supposed to come, December 3rd or whatever. And then when he comes and replaces the rollers, then he can document, take pictures. And in his case, he's so busy, he sends his pictures to me, so I upload them for him. But he'll take the pictures now, whereas before he didn't. And he'll send them to me and say, can you upload these to your Mapistry so that we have this documented? And then we document the whole process. And again, I mean, the whole repair was documented, and you could follow the whole thing through and see that it was done in a timely manner. It wasn't forgotten. And you can see the results of that right there in the photos. So that, and then it stays in your action items until it is completed. So you can see it and you can click into it and see the progress that's being made while it's in process, and then when it's completed, it goes away. So that's helped a lot. And again, it keeps our runtime up. It keeps our efficiency up. And, just having the maintenance on the plants documented like that, it really helps to keep things rolling because there's not major breakdowns because things aren't being done.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think the nice thing about the action items, which you mentioned, is that you can see that on both the web app and the mobile app. So if they're out in the field and they're like, what was that I needed to do? Or let me add that photo now. They're able to do that and have that flexibility too.
Right, and the offline access helps too, because some of our plants are remote. And so they may not have really good cell service, or they may not be able to connect to Wi-Fi at a certain time. So they can use that on the mobile app in the offline mode. They can still take their pictures, they can still make their notes, and then when they connect to Wi-Fi or internet, it uploads everything. So you haven't missed anything, and you don't have to remember to go back and do your inspection later because you've done it and it just uploads. It's really nice.
That's huge, because I remember even training, we had one site that had limited bandwidth for the internet, so we dropped in and out. So having that offline mode is huge.
That was horrendous, but yes.
We got it done. We made a video. We were able to work around it. But that's just exactly. That is part of the flexibility we have. Awesome. I think we have one more question. Can you guys summarize your overall improvements with Mapistry? We've kind of touched on them a lot already, but if you have any other ones you want to mention.
Yeah, so our plants are a lot cleaner. They are visibly cleaner when you go. I've commented several times to Gary and also our manager about the site's looking so much better. You actually validate that workflow with the pictures, with the task. You can actually see that they are doing what they are assigned to do. Our safety record has improved. They're more aware, I think, of things on a monthly basis than they would be generally just kind of pencil whipping things. Yeah, I mean, correcting things happens so much faster now rather than just, forgetting about it. Corrections get done. And again, the accountability is there and they are aware of what's going on at their plants now more so than they were before. And they just have more legitimacy with those inspections for, environmental or safety inspections, outside agencies coming in and inspecting. They have more legitimacy there as well.
That's huge. Yeah. And it makes a big impact on the company as a whole. So it's awesome that you're able to see those improvements.
Oh yeah, and you've been able to see personnel-wise the improvements.
Oh yeah, I mean those guys are, you kind of get content, I guess, with those paper forms. And most of them knew the box. They didn't even read the questions. They knew yes, 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 no, yes, 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 no. I mean they've done it so many times, and this kind of gives them, you put that on them, and it gives them more accountability. And I think if they know what to expect, you can expect more out of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. That's huge. Awesome. I think we have one more. Oh, that was it. Any other comments before I move on to like audience questions?
I think we can move on.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing all of your information. We have an audience question that's very similar to Gary, what you just said. It was, have plant managers been more motivated to complete forms because they know their performance is being tracked, and what, if any, impact has that had on productivity? You kind of mentioned this, but you want to dive a little deeper there?
Yeah, it's definitely helped motivate them and give them that accountability, and they can take a little bit more ownership in their sites now because they're actually having to get out and see what's going on. So yeah, we've seen a pretty big improvement in our plant managers.
Absolutely, I would second that.
That's awesome. For the audience, just a reminder, you can submit questions using your navigation bar. There's a question box. For both of you, what advice would you give to anybody who's just starting to use technology, starting to try to digitalize inspection forms? Thinking back to when you first started, what advice would you give to somebody that was in that same spot?
Do it yesterday. The sooner the better.
Just jump in. You have to jump in and get started with it, and then you can make changes as you go, as you see the need. There's not going to be a program out there that fits you right off the shelf.
Yeah, you're going to have to do some customization. And another thing that I would say is too, when you take your month or whatever to do your trial, just remember it is a trial. And you may look at that and go, this inspection has absolutely nothing to do with us. I don't know why it's on here. Well, that's just for you to see how it works. So you customize it to your liking. When you actually make the commitment to go with Mapistry, that's when you will do your customization. Because at first I was like, gosh, these don't even look very familiar. But once you get into it and you're like, these are our forms, these are what we need, I'm telling you, it is amazing how customized it can get.
Yeah, and we spent a lot of time customizing for you guys, and that was, I think, part of the beauty of why it works so well is because there was a lot invested into it on both sides.
Yeah, and by by the Mapistry team as well as our own. I mean, we worked a lot of hours all together to try and get this set up the way that we needed it. And we might put a form in there and it's, we set it up this way, but then when we use it, well, we may need to add a photo, or we may need to make this required or not required. And so you can make those fine-tuned adjustments and make it really work the way you need it to.
Yeah, 100%. Do you mind spending a little more time talking about the onboarding process for you guys? I think a lot of customers sometimes don't know what onboarding is going to look like when they join Mapistry or even another software company. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that experience for you guys?
Yeah, sure. So for us, we started off one area at a time. So we have, gosh, I don't know, a lot of areas. We started with mine because I was the one that started with the free app and the one that kind of pushed everything in. So of course, let me go first. So we started with one area, so we kind of started it small and then added another and added another and added another, and we're still adding. And then as we go through, we started using, I mean, that's the only way to do it really, is just start using the app, start using the web app or the mobile app, and just that's the only way you're going to do it. So then we have our bi-weekly Zoom meetings where we get on and we talk about, okay, this week we onboarded these sites and these are the questions that we had. These are the things that they found that they would like to, you know, change or improve or add or take away. And then we would kind of discuss whether or not we wanted to tell them to deal with it, or if we wanted to give in to their requests, just based on whatever it was we did. So we're still going through the process. It's gonna, you know, it's gonna take some time. We've been on since May, well, since April. And so at first we did do your paper, then take it to Mapistry and answer your questions. And then we said, okay, do Mapistry and check it with your paper. And then we were like, okay, drop the paper. So, you know, most of the time though, once they used Mapistry 1 month, they didn't want the paper anymore.
Yay, that's awesome. There must have been a couple people who gave you some pushback. So how do you deal with those users who didn't really want to switch? And
We really only had one. Yeah. You know, we really only had one, and it was really just because he was used to doing what he wanted to do.
He just didn't want to change.
Yeah, I mean, they get tired. Some of them are very resistant to change at all. You know, if you can give them a blue pen where they have had a black pen, and they will just fuss because it's blue. So sometimes you just have to tell them, this is what we're doing, and I don't care what you want. You know? But
I like it.
I mean, 99% of them have been just very excited to make the change. And I haven't really had much pushback at all, even from the ones that I would expect.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and is huge. And the fact that so many are taking advantage of Mapistry and like easily adopting it, I think that sets the tone for everybody else. So even if you have one person who's not really into it, the rest of the team is really pushing to use it.
Right. I talked to another area this morning and asked, how's your Mapistry going? Oh, they love it. I haven't had any complaints. And I was like, well, that's really good.
That's awesome. We love to hear that. We have another question from the audience. They asked, what was the most eye-opening thing you learned after moving to digital process?
The most eye-opening thing.
I mean, it would probably be the lack of actually going out and inspecting. It was just the pencil whipping.
Yeah, that was, you didn't expect that it happened as much as it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, and it really exposes that for sure.
Yeah.
Because they'll call you and I had one guy call and say, you know, I've had this spill kit in my office for 7-8 years, and I just knew it was there. And I read this question that said, is it complete? And he said, I looked in there and there was nothing in the box.
Oh no.
It's not complete. You know,
Yep.
So having them actually have to read the questions and answer the questions, and you know, they say, well, I don't know how to answer this question, so they go out and look at it, and then they start to discover things like the spill kit. So we immediately ordered a new spill kit, got him up, you know, in compliance immediately. And so I guess the most eye-opening thing was that they actually weren't reading the questions. You know, they just marked the yeses that were yes last month.
And you'd be surprised. I mean, there's a lot of questions that they didn't even understand that they were answering anyway.
Yeah,
instead of asking the question.
Two, them, as far as, I even forgot where I was going with that because you, but yeah, them answering the questions and having to answer the questions and having to actually research it and going out there, it just really highlights the ones that are doing the good job versus the ones who were kind of falling behind. Yeah, it makes it stand out for sure.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think it's interesting because we hear this from a lot of customers that they had to retrain a lot of their staff once they got onto Mapistry because they realized that they were pencil whipping and they just didn't understand
That's right.
the
Yeah.
requirements or what they needed to do.
Having a correct answer, because now they say,
Having a reason for a correct answer, not
Yeah.
just a correct answer.
yeah, well, I have to explain to them the correct answer is the truth. It's not correct if it's yes or correct if it's no. It's what's the truth. Because if you document that truth and then you document the corrections that need to be made, if there are corrections that need to be made, that is the correct answer. So, sometimes in the beginning I would have questions. Well, is this question supposed to be yes or no? I'm like, what's the answer to the question? That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Then we go from there, So getting them to understand that there is no correct answer other than the truth, and that it's not always supposed to be yes and always supposed to be no. The agencies know that your site is not perfect 100% of the time. It's documenting the corrections that makes it legitimate. So, training them in that.
Yeah, I have a lot of customers tell me that having those corrective actions and seeing that they've been closed or the tasks and seeing that they've been closed is actually more impactful than just seeing a fully completed inspection form with no notes, no comments, just yes, no's.
100%, because it makes you understand that they are actually doing their job.
Exactly. And they know what's happening and then they're cleaning it up in a timely manner. Seeing those time frames is really important too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. We have one more question from the audience. Have you experienced a request for information from inspectors, and how have you helped how has it helped or hindered your relationships with regulators?
That's a really good question. So I have not had a request since we started Mapistry, but I do have a good analogy for what happens otherwise. Just before we started Mapistry, which really led into management signing off on, yes, please go ahead. We had an inspection during COVID, and I had to email stacks of paper. And it got to the point because we were limited by our email size. So I could only scan one form for 1 month at a time and email that one form at a time. They wanted 36 months of forms. We have 20 something forms. So I don't know, you do the math. It was a lot of forms that they wanted for this one location. I have 19 under me. We have 80 locations. Okay. So it took me months during COVID, where I'm working from home on HughesNet satellite internet, which is not fast. And so I finally had to text the inspector a picture of the stacks of paper on my desk and say, I promise you they're here. I promise I am working on it. Whereas with Mapistry, all I have to do is download the zip file and email it. Boom, boom, done. And I could have gone on with my month instead of having to waste hours and hours and hours and hours scanning, rescanning because that scan was too big, rescanning again because that scan was too big, and emailing 50,000 different emails.
Yeah.
It was huge. So, yeah, as far as inspectors requesting documents, it's an immediate turnaround versus hours upon hours of work.
Exactly. And especially now where I think some regulators might be less lenient on you taking so long to provide those documents.
Right.
You'll be able to provide it instantaneous, and you can even forward them an email from Mapistry with that zip file with all of your.
Yeah, absolutely, because they could have very easily said, well, I don't think that you actually have these. I think you're trying to make this up as you go along, and so having instant access to those reports and being able to send it immediately in that zip file, it is huge as far as, again, your legitimacy. I keep saying, legitimacy, accountability, but these things are absolutely time and time and time again, they're being proven that Mapistry has helped us with that.
I concur, and I totally agree. And I think it's amazing that you will never have to sit there and scan another paper form again.
God, I won't ever have to do it again.
I know. Awesome. Well, thank you guys both. For the audience, we do have a poll, so I'm gonna send out the poll for you guys to answer. So please take a second to answer. It's just asking if you'd like a demo. I highly recommend it. Once you submit the poll, let me launch it. 1 second. We'll be able to reach out to you and set up a demo call. A demo is always really helpful to see exactly what we were talking about today. So please take a few seconds to answer, and then once this is done, we'll move on. I'm going to give you guys about another couple seconds to answer. We see some poll numbers coming in, and then we'll close out. Awesome. I'm going to close the poll in 5 seconds. So submit your last answers. Awesome. Well, can everybody see my screen again?
Yep.
Okay, good. Sometimes the poll doesn't always work. But again, thank you, Gary and Sonia. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. I know I get to talk to you guys about every 2 weeks, but it's always fun to share your stories with everybody else because I think it's so valuable and you have so much to share. So we really appreciate it.
Yep, it's been great for us.
Yep.
Yay. Good. Well, for everybody listening, please join us next time. We'll have a EHS leadership webinar on financial factors of environmental and safety. This is talking about growing top line and bottom line revenue via your EHS program. I think everything we touched on today kind of relays into this, but this will be a great talk, and it's on December 16th at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard, 10 a.m. Central, and 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I hope you're all able to join. And Sonia and Gary, have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Celine. See you later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.